whomever is listening to this has that feeling of like, I don't know what my purpose is. Okay, well, just ask yourself, like, how do you really want to feel? And can you start there?
Welcome back to the Soulful CEO Path. This is the podcast for purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are building wildly abundant and aligned businesses that create ripple effects of positivity in the world. And today I'm here with Nicole Chrone, business coach and founder of My Aligned Purpose. I'm really excited for this conversation today because how Nicole and I met is kind of a fun story. We were standing in the lobby getting ready to go into an event a couple of months ago. And as we started to chat, we realized that there was a lot of alignment between the work that we do and the way that we look at work and how we both look at having business be this vehicle to do your purpose in the world. So today's conversation is going to just be like a little behind the scenes look at two coaches chatting about things that we love. And I can't wait to get Nicole's perspective on this idea of creating purpose-driven businesses and what that actually means and how that can look, because it's something that I'm really passionate about, but I also know that there's a lot of nuance to it. So today, I hope we're going to get into that. So Nicole, really happy to have you here and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kristin. I'm super excited to be here and to chat again. You were on our show a few weeks ago, and yeah, I'm looking forward to being on the other side of the microphone.
Yeah, I'm so happy to do this reciprocal hosting because it really is such a nice way to get to know people. You know, when you meet someone at like an event or something like we did, you know, what do you do usually after that? Kind of maybe stay connected online or whatever, but having these platforms where we can connect for a 45-minute chat and just like learn more about each other and our audiences get to benefit from these conversations, I think is really cool. So that's what we're here to do today. And I want to just start, like, get right to it. And I want to ask you about purpose because it's in the name of your business, My Aligned Purpose. I would love to hear how you think about purpose. Like, what does it actually mean?
Yeah, this is a question that I feel I get asked in many different ways. Like, where did the name come from? Why the name? What does aligned purpose mean? Purpose on its own. Purpose to me feels, and obviously there's a textbook definition of it, but what purpose feels like to me is that you're waking up and beginning your day. And I have a very strong belief that how we live our days is how we live our lives. And so being really intentional about every day that I get and waking up and thinking about, what do I get to do today? Not what do I have to do, but what do I get to do today that makes me feel like I'm alive? Like Amanda Frances says in her book that sometimes people glorify this idea of like, you want to just make all this money so that you can like lay around on the couch and watch TV and eat chips and that people don't want to work. And she's like, and that's not it. And I think about that often, that sentiment often. And I was just telling you before we hit record that I was feeling sick for the last week and I was like couch bedridden. And there was nothing about that I enjoyed. That didn't feel on purpose to me. I didn't feel like I was living. So purpose to me means waking up feeling like, what do I get to do today? Who do I get to talk to? In what ways do I get to be? That allows me to feel like at the end of the day, I'll be able to look back and reflect on, I really chose to live today. And that to me is purpose.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that definition. And I think it's really great that you bring in this like kind of groundedness around purpose, around like living and, you know, what are you actually doing? And you said being as well. So this like balance between who we're being and who we're doing. Because sometimes I think purpose, and I'd love to just have a conversation around this with you, but kind of gets like confused and it becomes this like existential crisis almost around this like big thing, like what am I here to do, what's my big purpose, and it can stress people out and it can actually lead people down like kind of interesting paths because if we frame it that way, our purpose is like one thing that we have to find that's outside of ourselves, and it becomes this treasure hunt around like finding my purpose. But the way that you're talking about it sounds a little bit different. So is there anything you want to like add or, you know, speak to around that, around this like idea about purpose being this like, I don't know, like existential like thing that we have to find versus this lived definition that you kind of have brought to the table?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, it can create this feeling of what is my purpose? And, many people will come to the table with that or, come to a coaching call of feeling like I want clarity around what my purpose is. And in the same way that I have my beliefs around what manifestation is, and I love manifestation and I teach it a lot and I live and breathe it throughout my life. I believe that manifestation and what your purpose is and many other things in life come down to the feeling. How do you actually want to feel? And so if you remove, like, my purpose is to write books and speak on stages and change the world. Okay, but why? Because, then I will get to live this adventurous life and become well known and get to impact people. Okay, why? And if you
Hmm.
keep going, why? Ultimately, it comes down to a feeling state because then I will feel enough or satisfied or abundant or whatever it might be. Okay, so that's what you really want. So if what I really want, speaking on stages, writing books, coaching women all around the world, of course I want those things. I want to experience those things in this lifetime. And if I take myself through the deeper why, I want to feel, well, on purpose, but I also want to feel this sense of, like, wow, like, I've lived excitement. I'm experiencing things. And so if that's what I want, then I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to choose that. I'm not going to wait to write the book to feel excited or to feel accomplished or to feel confident. I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to ask myself, what can I do today to feel confident? Knowing that that energy is going to magnetize the ideas, the people, the opportunities that will then bring in the physical 3D experience. And so if whomever is listening to this has that feeling of like, I don't know what my purpose is. Okay, well, just ask yourself, like, how do you really want to feel? And can you
Yeah.
start there?
That's so great. Because, yeah, the physical manifestations are just vehicles, right? They're just vehicles for us to be able to express and live into, create those feelings and emotions and experiences. So that's kind of a segue into business around this piece, because I think that that's, obviously that's how you help people, is creating businesses around their purpose, a big function of it. Okay, so one of the things that you'll hear often, this like, a piece of advice anyways, is just follow your passions and like everything will work out.
Hmm.
How do you feel about that statement?
I think it's like you said at the beginning, it's nuanced. I think if you know what your passion is, that's you've got a head start. And if you can figure out a way to serve others with your passion and monetize it, then, like, you've the lottery, like, you're winning. I think that if you don't know what your purpose is and, just follow your purpose, then again, it goes back to now you probably have this existential crisis happening of I'm not going to be successful or I'm behind or whatever it might be because you don't feel like, you're just following your purpose because you don't even know what you're following. So I think it's kind of nuanced, it's kind of twofold. I think that if we're talking about women in particular, I think that you and I both work with primarily women. I believe, my belief is that women can and will do a whole lot more in this world when they are making more money and when they feel on purpose. And I often say that I'm not here to breathe the belief into anybody to wait around to marry rich, to win the lottery, or to ask for the pay raise you're never going to get. So, if you want to make more money and have more impact and live more on purpose, then create something that lights you up, again, makes you feel alive. Create something, go out there, share it with others, monetize it, and make your money that way. And then you'll continue to feel like, wow, I'm doing something really awesome. People really like this. And yeah, it might not feel like the original path of following your purpose, but does your purpose get to evolve over time? Yeah, I absolutely think so. Because I think if I had have talked to 20-year-old me, 16-year-old me, like different versions of me, she would have had different ideas of what she felt like was a purposeful way to live or be. And there's probably versions of me that would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so I think it's just like really recognizing that we can, it sounds so like cliche, but it's true. We can be, do, have whatever we want. The moment you believe that and take that on as your belief, and then ask yourself or higher power, or whatever it might be, what am I going to do today to
Hmm.
be, do, and have anything I want? And can I feel purposeful in that? Then, yeah, you're smooth sailing.
Beautiful. And you brought in like two components there that I think is really important. And maybe we can dive into this is that you talked about one, knowing what your purpose is, passionate about. So that's like, what is the thing that lights you up? And the like other thing that I bring in there, and I don't know how you feel about this, but it's like the business side of it to me is that, and what are you uniquely positioned to offer in terms of like who you want to serve, because there's a lot of people who can be, passionate about the same thing, but are you uniquely positioned to like do a great job at that with a specific group of people, and finding that like intersection between what you're passionate about, what you're uniquely positioned to offer, who actually needs that thing, and how can you serve them. That's what I find creates the like business aspect around the purpose versus
Mm,
it just being like a hobby, which can be, we can be very purposeful in our hobbies too.
right.
But it's different. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that in your experience of like supporting women build, I know part of your mission is like to help women build like really abundant businesses around their purpose. So what is the formula in your mind?
The way that I see this is that a lot of women, in my experience, will self sabotage with the story of, I'm not certified enough. I'm not the expert. I can't create a business around that. And I believe that there is a very clear line in the sand between being the expert, which is like all in your head. How many certifications can you get? Just get another training and then you'll feel good enough to go. I see that as an excuse. That's self sabotage. That's you holding yourself back if you're trying to be the expert. The opposite to that, in my, again, it's only my opinion, my belief, is to be the authority. And I believe the difference in being the person who is the authority and the person who's the expert is the expert is all in your head. It's like, oh, yes, I know this. I've got more expertise, more training, education. And the person who is the authority, it's wisdom. It is known, it is felt in their body, it's embodiment, it's who they are. And so I will often share that I no, I am one of the best coaches that there is. I feel that in my body. I know that to be true. Now, do I feel that way about everything in my life? Absolutely not. If you were like, Nicole, you got to grow your own food. Here's some seeds, figure it out. I'd be like, I'm screwed. I don't feel like the authority. I don't feel like the expert. I don't even feel like the beginner. I feel like I'm out in left field. So it's really recognizing what you feel is easy for you to talk about and to be and to live. And the reason that I feel like the authority in coaching and specifically coaching business. Again, I know divorce coaches. I would not be a good divorce coach. I've never been divorced. There's life coaches, there's health coaches, there's all these sorts of things. I am not the authority in those very niche particular areas. But the area that I am an authority in is being a business coach who focuses specifically on NLP mindset. And why? Because I've lived and breathed this since I was like 22. I'm going to be 40 next year. I've got like almost 2 decades of this. I know it. I don't have to look anything up. I don't need another training. I don't want another certification. This is who I am. I am a coach. I am a business coach. I am a mindset expert authority. And so to get to that place, to feel that level of confidence, I believe that it's practice, like just practice and practice and practice. So if you want to coach somebody, like Tony Robbins says, if you want something, give it away. If you want to coach somebody and you're holding yourself back, and say you want to health coach somebody, and very specifically, you want to health coach a woman who just had a baby. If you want to do that and you're holding yourself back because you're saying, I'm not the expert, I don't have the training, I don't have this. Kristin, how many times has anybody ever asked you for your coaching certification? Like nobody's ever asked you
No.
for that.
I
No,
gave up my ICF certification a couple years ago because I came up through the corporate space and was doing internal leadership coaching and development. And in that space, it was like kind of important to have that, or so I was told, anyways. So I got it. And then I realized that like I'd been in business for like 6 years at that point. Literally, no one gives a shit. No
no.
one gives a shit about any of that stuff. So I was like, why am I paying hundreds of dollars a year to keep this thing up when like no one cares? I don't care. I don't even think it's a super like relevant credential.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
totally.
so there's just so many women out there who are holding themselves back because they think that people are going to be like, well, what training do you have? What certification? What degrees? What accolades? And like maybe if you're walking around asking everybody for their stuff, then I can see why you feel that way. But but chances are low. And so rather than thinking about the next training, just go out there and start practicing. Tell, like, again, to this Tony Robbins quote, if you want something, give it away. I know because my coach training made us do this, but when you first start to do coach training, you have to coach for free. You have to practice. And in exchange of that, you're getting the experience, you're getting the practice, you're more than likely going to get testimonials and social proof. And so for anybody who's listening, just go start the thing that you want to do and practice. And you can practice with friends, or you can ask a friend to send an email and see if other people want to, experience what it is that you have for sale, a product, a service. But that's how you're going to become the authority. And that's how you're going to feel like you've got wisdom, because we can chat GPT anything today. I can chat GPT, give me a meal plan. I don't need to hire a health coach for that. Like, give me a macro plan. Here's what I like, what I don't like, how many macros I want to have, blah, blah, blah. I can ask chat that. But what chat can't give me is the wisdom of somebody who has lived through the experience of what it's like to, in this example, try and lose weight with or without macros, and to work with women of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds and hormone specifications and that sort of thing. So, this also speaks to people having this fear of AI taking over.
Mm-hmm.
AI can take over expertise, it can take over knowledge, but it
Mm-hmm.
can't take over your wisdom. So just get out there and start practicing being it.
And I love that you started going into AI, because that was like a little note that I made. I'm like, if the conversation happens to go here, I'd love to explore that with you. There are these nuances around what it can and can't do. And it's actually, I think, especially in the coaching space, creating a bigger opportunity for great coaches who aren't just giving people the XYZ 10-step plan, the cookie cutter approaches, because that's so missing in the general, culture, we could say, right now in that space. So let's elaborate on that a little bit in terms of, okay, so say someone now they're past the stage of like finding their passion, building a business around it, but they're in this place of like, my experience is like my business has evolved many, many times in the past. I started in 2016. I don't ever feel like I've like made it, because I know that something's going to change, like from experience. It's like I have a funnel that's like crushing, and I'm just like getting clients on repeat. And I'm like, this is awesome. And I know that it's like not going to last forever. So there's going to be this evolving piece. So what do you see right now for it could be coaches, service providers, whoever, who are seeing this like evolution of AI and maybe getting a little bit like nervous about it? How do you see that kind of fitting into our conversation? And what advice are you giving people around that if they would come to you around that right now?
Truthfully, it's not something that I really think about or give too much thought to, or have had many conversations about like what's going to happen with the coaching industry with AI. What I do give thought to, that's in a similar vein, is what is happening to the coaching industry now that we're like 5 years past, the pandemic and the world closing down. Because for anyone who was around in the 2019, 2020 era, so yeah, we didn't have ChatGPT and those things back then. But I would argue that every single coach who's around now, who was around in 2020, would say 2020 was booming in the online space because everybody was online. People were working from home and people wanted courses and all these things. It was just so explosive then. So when I'm chatting to clients and peers in the industry of like, what do I see happening now? I see people who were looking for a quick fix, who were looking for overnight success, and you and I chatted a little bit about this on my podcast, like the people who are just like running quick, like $97 this, $97 that. It has no brand integrity. It has no sustenance to it. I see those people falling off. I see the coaches specifically, who are sticking around now and who will move forward for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, are the ones who have really focused on building a brand, who weren't looking for the shiny object, who have spent the last 5, 10 years focusing on having something that they're known for, that they built a reputation around. And if you can include ChatGPT into that without it interrupting the integrity of your true voice and your vision, I'm all for work smarter, not harder. And I think like don't get lazy. I think if we look at the Amy Porterfields of the world, like somebody who's built a strong brand, and actually we talked about Amy Porterfield on my podcast,
Yeah.
and what you said about her, I think is so true in that. Of course, she is knowledgeable in many things. Amy Porterfield could show up every day creating a new funnel $97 offer to something, but she's not. She is sticking true to brand integrity, to her voice, to her super niche client of what it is. And then she's going out and living her life. And I think that the coaches who will succeed moving forward aren't the ones looking for a quick fix and aren't looking for AI to replace all of their workload and to make life lazy for them. I think it's the people who are like, I really love what I do. And if I could duplicate me a couple of times and make this even better and speed it up, that's how I'll use AI.
Yeah, it's like that thinking partner, that creative partner versus like replacing you completely. And you can tell, right? You can tell when it's just like chat GPT'd everything and it's just someone's pumping out like, I mean, no judgment if like, but the lots of content and it's just like all copy paste, we could become numb to it versus like I just actually read a Substack article, well, not article, I guess blog from a friend of mine who's a beautiful writer and she's just gotten back into long form writing. And it was such a nice read because
Mm,
it was like human. And there's
yeah.
no way that she would have been able to create that with like the help of chat. It would have just, it's just so different. So it was like, was reading it this morning and I was like, this feels so nice to like
Mm.
read this as opposed to the, bombardment of just like, it feels sterile in a sense, content.
Yeah. And actually something else that I want to say to this that just came up for me while you were saying like reading her story and it was so nice is that I do believe that's what separates like really strong successful brands to those that are just not going to make it is having a really solid story and storytelling, and ChatGPT can't story tell the way you can, right? Like when I show up on our social media and I story tell over and over and share this story of like going to university to become a teacher and then feeling like I got it. I made it all. I've got the job, the classroom, I'm engaged, the pension, the benefits, all of it. And I tell this story of like waking up and feeling like this is not it. This is not my purpose. I am not living. I want to start partying at 4 p.m. on Friday and I don't want to stop until Sunday night and then I'll make it through my work week again. That is not a way to live. And I hit that wall at 30 years old. And when I tell that story of like, it's never too late to change your mind or to discover what you really want. And then here's what I did about it and take people along the story. There's no way ChatGPT could write a story like that. It's my story and it's me telling it. And I write the way I speak. And so I am the one who does our social media. And I know that in a second, somebody would recognize, anybody who's followed us for any amount of time would recognize if it wasn't me writing it. They'd be like, they're outsourcing that because that's not the way Nicole talks.
And I mean, it's interesting because it's like the more you train the chat, the more you can get it to get close in terms of your brand voice and things like that. So you can get close, but you're right, the storytelling part of it, and this is actually something we're working on inside of my Soulful CEO Club right now with all of the members. It's really clarifying their brand stories. So
Mm.
we're working on the origin story, the like inciting moment story, the defining moment story. And one of the things that is coming up for people, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is like we have so many stories as multidimensional humans
Mm.
with so many experiences. How do you decide what stories to tell under this like conversation we're having around a cohesive brand and focus? Like, how do we start to storytell in a way that's actually meaningful versus, say, our social media just becoming a diary?
Well, I think it's like, of course, we are, multifaceted humans with many stories. And I think that there is a place to like weave those stories in and like maybe connect a through line. And I think it's about choosing the story that if you were approached and somebody said one defining story, that's it. You only get one. I'm
Yeah.
going to pay you $1 million to give me the best story about how you got from A to Z along your business journey. You would be able to think of one. You would be able to think of one. And I think it's being really okay with repeating that over and over and over again. I think so many of us know the stories of like, say, Sarah Blakely. We've heard her talk about going around not knocking on doors, selling fax machines, not liking how the pantyhose felt. She cut the feed off. Then she discovered, wow, this could be a whole thing, created Spanx, sold it for $2 billion, got on Oprah. I know Sarah Blakely's story, not because I hang out with her, although that would be incredible, but because she tells it everywhere, everywhere. It's her story. And is that the only story she has to tell? Most likely not, but it's her story that she knows is ingrained with people. It's same with like Jenna Kutcher. It's like, I'm just a small town girl who bought a camera off Facebook Marketplace. It's like, I know that because I've heard it over and over. And I think that oftentimes women feel afraid of like, oh, I've already said that. I've said it too much. I'm repeating myself. It's like, that's the whole point. Go be a parrot, repeat yourself, ingrain that story into everybody and remind them that that is the story that changed everything for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's so key. Is like to us, it's the same story. It sounds like we said it a million times. It's like, oh, do we really want to share this again? But it is so important. That is what creates the brand cohesion. Is when we have that like anchor story that is like the origin story, or however you defining moment story, however you want to position it. Yeah, you just say it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that is anyone, like if you've seen Tony Robbins like speak, if you see anyone who's like, you know, a performer, they have the same stories that they tell over and over again, and
Yeah.
that's what they end up becoming known for. So it's like really owning that, I think, is the piece for a lot of women, is like really owning that and taking up space around it and being okay with like, you know, saying it over and over again.
Yeah. And it's like to the opposite. When you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm repeating myself and everybody must be sick of this story because I'm sick of it. You get in your head and now you start creating new stories and new offers and new content. And then somebody comes across your page and they're like, what is she even known for? What does she do? What's her story? I don't know. Oh, last week she was all about this. And now this week she's selling this. And it's like, it doesn't make sense and it's not magnetic. And people will not be magnetized to somebody who's flip flopping.
True. It's like it's because a lot of times we're looking for the newness that we're doing that, but it's only confusing everybody else. So yeah, love that.
Right. I'm Aries. So like I'm fiery. I'm a quick start. I like to generate things in human design. I'm a generator. I'm an ideas person. I'm a visionary. I like to think and create new. But what I've really worked to ground myself in to not confuse people externally is how can I take my new fun ideas and bring them into podcast episodes or bring them into ideas inside of our mastermind, but not creating something externally new for people all the time because, you know, your top of funnel or where people are finding you, they're going to find you. And if you want to take them on that no love trust journey, it like you've got to have some consistency or else they're
Yeah.
going to divert and go somewhere else.
Yes. I feel like we're on the same page there. I'm an Enneagram 7, Sagittarius, generator, big ideas person. And one of the
Yeah.
things that I did early on in my entrepreneurial journey that seems so simple, but it's been like a game changer, is creating a parking lot. So it's like with any
Yeah.
new idea I have, I put in the parking lot and I revisit it once a quarter to be like, do any of these ideas get a place in, you know, in my my priorities? And
Yeah.
it's so often that like this quarter is a perfect example. I've been wanting to do merch for so long. Like, okay, you can kind
Yes.
of see I have this like Soulful CEO candle. I got some
Mm,
candles made. I have some hats, but like it doesn't make sense to bring these in right now. Like it just does not. And
right.
so maybe one day, but it's like when I look at the business model around it, I look at like the other things going on, I'm just like, no. And so but it is a discipline for me to do that because I do want to have all these different things.
Mm.
And so it's like not generally my preference, but it's something that I've been able to learn how to focus the energy, which has been so helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when you're running all of your retreats in your retreat center someday, then and it's, you know, a matter of who not how. So rather than you figuring out all the merch, it's you're going big and you've got your team and they've got all the merch set up at your retreats and you're showing up and doing exactly what you want to do and the vision is cast. But like you just said, it takes discipline and focus to be able to not be like squirrel.
Yeah, totally. So, one final thing I want to touch on with you before we kind of wrap up is I want to touch on the idea that, well, I want to get your opinion on this. So, my experience is that just because we are in alignment and having a business that is around our purpose does not mean that it's going to be easy. And
Hmm.
I think that that's a misconception some people have, that if it doesn't feel easy, then it's not aligned. And then they freak out and they, go and change the thing, they change the vision, change the direction. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be like hard, but like
Mhm.
there's going to be challenges in my experience with it. So I'd love to get your perspective on that, of around like being in alignment versus like it being easy, and like how do we get it to feel good even though it's challenging?
This is such a good conversation because I think it really starts with the identity of knowing that you're going to be a business owner and choosing to take this identity on. I'm going to be a business owner, and that's obviously going to come with challenges. Like, there's never been a successful business owner who's been like, yep, it's been rainbows and butterflies the whole way. So, when you can just acknowledge what you're getting into is going to take grit and determination, especially in the beginning. And when I say beginning, I mean like first 5 years. Like, it's going to take consistently showing up to the table and deciding that this is what you really want. And like, yes, it might feel hard, but there's often that conversation of what feels harder. So, yeah, there are days where my business feels incredibly hard. I don't want to have the hard conversation with somebody and tell them they've crossed my boundaries or if they've overstepped or whatever it might be. But I don't want to wake up tomorrow and go teach teenagers in a classroom the public education system. That was my other reality. That feels way fucking harder than having a hard conversation. And so it's really about like choosing your hard and knowing that like this is just the name of the game. If you're an entrepreneur, if you want to have a business, like it gets to be fun and it gets to be easy and it's going to be challenging and there's going to be problems to solve and you want problems to solve, but I think it's just like take on that identity. Just like I'm not a mom of children, but what I hear is that moms of children will say like this is the hardest job I've ever had. You hear that. I'm trying to conceive. I hear that day in and day out. I'm inundated with you're never going to sleep again. It's going to be the hardest job ever.
And
You're going
people
to
still sign up for it.
and I'm like, I'm working hard to sign up for the hardest job of my life, right? And so it's just like go in with it with the knowledge and the knowing that like it's going to be hard, but is it what you want? And is the way that you're currently living, maybe paycheck to paycheck or miserable or under somebody else's like rule, their timeline, their determination, is that hard? And would you rather create your own thing and make your own hard? I don't know. I just feel like when we look at it that way, it actually becomes
Yeah.
easier.
Yes, I agree. It's like the analogy I often relate it to is like, if you were to do, say, like run a marathon or something like that, that's going to be really hard regardless. But some
Mhm.
people are not going to want to choose that hard. They're going to choose,
Right.
they'd prefer to go like downhill skiing or something like that, which to me, that feels like way harder. But it's
Right.
like, so choosing, it's like if you're going to, you're going to choose to opt into something, and just knowing what you sign up for when you're signing up to be an entrepreneur. Because as you said, the first 5 years, I actually think it's like forever, to be honest, because like after the first 5 years, just different problems. Right now,
Yeah,
maybe you're dealing with team and leadership and like all of those things that in your first 5 years you
totally.
didn't have. So yeah, it's kind of like same with parenting, I guess. It's like you're signing up for this like ongoing, inevitable hard, but it's also like so joyful and can be
Mhm.
so joyful. I love that. Well, what's lighting you up these days? What are you working on? What is super aligned and on purpose for you in your life? And it sounds like you're trying to conceive, which is congratulations. That's an
Thank you.
exciting piece. But anything else?
It's a journey. We've been on this journey for 2 years, but I
Okay.
it's coming. It's
Hmm.
gonna come. I know it. What else is exciting? I am heading to Orange County on Monday morning. I joined a mastermind this year, and so our mastermind includes 2 week-long in-person masterminding. And so I'm heading down to meet my coaches and all of my mastermind peers for the first time on Monday. So I've got that coming up, which feels really exciting. And then I'm going to Mexico the week after. I'm like, get me into the sun. And then in business, what feels really exciting is we're hosting our very first big event. We've done retreats the last 4 years, and our retreats were like max 40, 50 people. And this year, our event is almost 200. So, really, that's next month. It's like crazy every day. We're like, organizing all of the people, the volunteers, all of it, feeding everybody. That's top of mind in this moment. And Kayla and I wrote our book this past fall. We rented, I say Kayla, for anybody who's listening, I have a business partner. We're 50-50. We rented a lake house. We went away for a week. We shut out the world. We wrote our whole entire book, and we are getting ready to launch that late 2025 before the new year.
Oh, so exciting. So much going on. What's the title and concept for the book?
Working title still, but it's mainly going to be becoming $1 million brand.
I can't wait to see
Not
that come.
Yeah, it's like the evolution for
Mhm.
anybody, right? Like how do you become
Yeah,
that?
amazing. Well, we will link your information in the show notes so people can connect with you and learn about your current offerings and what you're up to and all of that kind of stuff. One last question that we ask everybody who comes on here is, what does being a soulful CEO mean to you?
Well, I think first of all, if I think about CEO to me, I recognize that nobody's ever going to come crown me with that title. Nobody's ever going
Mhm.
to say, Nicole, now you're the CEO of your own company. That's a choice. And we made that choice in our business about 3 or 4 years ago well, when we incorporated to be like, well, we are the CEOs
Yeah.
if this is
No one else
legally
has taken this job. Yeah.
yeah, legally, what am I in my corporation? I am the co-CEO. And then so we just decided that actually, why wait for anybody to come give you that title? So for everybody listening, just start calling yourself the CEO or the founder or whatever it is. Even if you've got a wee little baby business, like that identity shift in and of itself will be massive for you. And then how to be the soulful CEO. I think it's really the way we started out this podcast and ending it is choosing to wake up and live your day out in a way that allows you to really be present and to really live and to connect with who you really are, which is your soul. And so if you can infuse that also into your work, then I think you're cruising.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love hearing people's different definitions because that's part of one of the big things that around this brand, Soulful CEO, is that there's no definition around it. It's like it
Right.
is so unique and it's something that we get to define for ourselves. So I love that definition and your recognition that the CEO part is like just a choice. It doesn't matter if you got
Yeah.
a baby business or you're running a multi-million-dollar business. It really is a choice to embody that identity. So thank you
Mm.
for that, for all of your wisdom today, for just letting us into your world and me getting to know you better, but then also that my audience at the same time. So appreciate you and your time. For everyone who's listening, go check out Nicole and My Aligned Purpose by clicking the link in the show notes. And if you haven't subscribed to the show already, make sure that you do that so you get notified every time a new episode comes out online. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, everyone.